Wow. This has surely got to be, I don't know you guys, but this has got to be one of the worst ways to lose a race in NASCAR. Like, seriously, you're 5 laps from winning, 5 laps away, or less than 5 laps away from winning a race. You are just cruising, you're having a 7-second lead. Of course, you're trying to conserve fuel, but you're still going full throttle, which means that you are most likely gonna make it on fuel, and then out of nowhere, a lap car in front of you blows a tire, and you're just running the high lane, got nowhere to go, and just smacking right in the rear. Wow, that has actually got a sting. But first of all, I would just want to get this out of the way. What just happened during the race, as usual, of course. So the race at the Xfinity race at Homestead was pretty entertaining. And I have 2 things to say, 2 main takeaways I have to say about this race. Number 1, why is Homestead not the season finale anymore? Remind me again. Why do we have Homestead? Why do we have Phoenix as a season finale and not Homestead? Like, maybe the first time maybe when NASCAR left Homestead and changed the finale over to Phoenix, we thought, oh well, maybe NASCAR is going to rotate the finale every year now. But no, it turns out that NASCAR is, for this season, and maybe for the foreseeable future, we're going to see the season finale at Phoenix. And don't get me wrong, Phoenix is not a bad track. Phoenix is not a bad racetrack, but compared to Homestead, it's not optimal for like a season finale. That decision of leaving Homestead for Phoenix for the season finale is looking pretty sus right now for NASCAR. And it got some people talking about how does Homestead deserve a second race. If Homestead is not going to be the season finale, they should give it at the very least a second race, because Homestead is, in my opinion, right now, Homestead is the best 1.5 mile track. Multi-groove racetrack, tires being a huge factor, and I mean it for this race. Tires, fresh rubber, it was a huge factor in this race. I believe it was stage 2. I believe this happened. I don't know if it was stage 1 or stage 2, but I know it was for one of those stages. Austin Cindric, he took 4 fresh tires on a yellow flag, and on the restart, he restarted like 23rd. And I swear, it took him just like 2.5 laps, 3 laps. It took just 3 laps for Austin Cindric to go from 23rd to the lead. That was like some video game type of move right there. That's something you only do on NASCAR. On NASCAR Heat, on NASCAR Heat 5 on the easiest difficulty, going from like the mid pack, from outside the top 20 to the lead in just 3 laps on a 1.5 mile. This is not some super speedway stuff. On a 1.5 mile track, even with fresh tires, that seemed possible, dude. Cindric was just going through those guys like they were lap cars. And Noah Gragson too. Like, shout out to Noah Gragson, man. He made an amazing race, and at this point, he deserves to win at Homestead. Noah Gragson is just cursed at this track. He's just pretty cursed at this track. Now, of course, the second takeaway I gotta say is, before I go on that tangent, the Xfinity package is just so much better than the Cup Series package, and it just baffles me. It just baffles me how Xfinity can get it so right with the Aero package, and the Cup Series can get it so freaking wrong. Like, the Xfinity Series, what do they run? They run like on 600 horsepower, 650 horsepower, I believe. Of course, the classic big motor, small blade. Now, of course, NASCAR doesn't like the big motors doesn't like big motors. They're opting for 550 horsepower on the bigger tracks because not only to reduce speed but also to reduce cost and to potentially attract new manufacturers to the sport. But what we saw at races like Kansas, that where you couldn't pass to save your life, NASCAR is just struggling so much to get their aero package right for the Cup Series, but the answer is just right in front of them. Just look at the Xfinity Series, man. Ever since last season, Xfinity has been like the most entertaining series in NASCAR. They have always been the most entertaining series in NASCAR, despite the lack of driver talent in the 2020 season. Like back in 2020, Xfinity was the easiest series to predict for the playoffs because there were like only 10 or 11 competitive cars. If you want to reach that high, there were only 10 or 11 competitive cars at best in the Xfinity series, and even then they were able to put on a show week in and week out despite the lack of driver talent in the Xfinity series. The fact that the aero package was so good, it created amazing racing. It got people watching. And it got people watching and praising the Xfinity series as the best series overall. Even better than the Truck Series, in my opinion. Like, the Cup Series, the Truck Series will always be good. Xfinity series is great, but the Cup Series is just sorely lagging behind when it comes to their aerodynamics and getting the package right. Like using the 750 horsepower for the smaller tracks and the 550 for the bigger tracks, but then using this huge spoiler, it's not the way to go. They gotta find a balance between the 750 horsepower and the 550 horsepower. And I believe like the Xfinity series setup that they're using, I don't know the exact specifics that the Xfinity series package are using, but I know that it's somewhere between 600 and 650 horsepower. If I'm wrong, then let me know in the comments, but that's just the impression that I see when I watch Xfinity racing, that the racing product is just so much better compared to the Cup Series. And while I'm happy that I'm watching some good racing, I'm also a bit discouraged and disheartened that the lower series, that the Xfinity and Truck Series are much better than the Cup Series. And the Cup Series is supposed to be the big boys, the premier racing series, the one that offers the best of the best, and it's just sorely lagging behind. I'm just baffled. And now finally, of course, gonna talk about Noah Gragson. Just pain in general. Just pain. That's nothing else you can describe. There's no other word I can use to describe this moment other than just pain. Though, to be fair, I mean, Noah Gragson's comments about how these lap cars should get in the way. Of course, it was a really funny soundbite, and it gave us a good laugh, of course, out of it. We're not telling Noah Gragson to change, because Noah Gragson is just showing how amazing of a personality he is. But honestly, Noah Gragson at this point should let it go. He was screwed over by a lap car, something that was not out of his control. But it's not like David Starr did it on purpose. He blew a tire, and of course, once you blow a tire, you're going to be sent careening into the outside wall. You're gonna be sent careening into the outside wall with nothing to do. And so yeah, it's not David Starr's fault, but you see out here Noah Gragson just trying to discredit or trying to say that what David Starr was saying is a lie, because I don't see the splitter dragging along the backstretch. If the splitter was dragging along the backstretch, then I would know that's a flat tire. The 13 didn't have a flat tire. Like, dude, I get it. You're angry. You lost the race. You still won't let it go. But god damn it, man. It's just race 3 of 33. Like, I know Gragson has not had the best start to the season. I know Gragson has had I know Noah Gragson has had an atrocious, and I mean atrocious, start to the season, but It's just race 3 of 33. You got still 30 races left to win a race, and there's a pretty high chance you will. I mean, you are arguably a top 5 driver in the Xfinity Series. You're seen as you could be seen as a championship contender, of course, but you gotta let it go, man. You gotta let these petty grudges go and just move on to the next one. Yeah, it was unfortunate that you did, but then again, you did it to yourself because your team, your crew chief was telling you to save fuel, but you were still running full throttle, passing lap cars. Like, if you weren't running so close behind David Starr, then maybe you would have been able to dog down low, and you would have maybe been able to dog down low and avoid him if you weren't running straight up behind him. If you weren't running a full throttle behind him, then maybe all of this incident could have been avoided, and maybe you would have won this race on fuel mileage. Who knows? But then again, I'm not saying that what Noah Gragson did is wrong, because at the end of the day, the pace that he wants to run is his decision. If you want to go full throttle when you are, even though they're telling you to conserve fuel, then go ahead, but you gotta learn how to live with the consequences of your action. Like, Noah Gragson knew what he was getting into. He knew the risks that were associated with being running full throttle while conserving fuel. You may just run out of fuel with 2 laps to go, or on the final lap. So, of course, that's very risky. Or, of course, you may get caught up in an accident for running behind someone, and then the guy in front of you crashes and you got nowhere to go. Whereas if you were saving fuel, you would have been able to avoid him. So, of course, that was pretty... I'm not saying this is Noah Gragson's fault. I'm not blaming this on anyone. This is just purely a racing incident. But for Noah Gragson to say that David Starr's flat tire is just an excuse, no, man, no. David Starr had a flat tire. I know you're salty. I know you're angry, but you gotta let it go, man. You gotta let it go. It's a long Xfinity season. You haven't had the best start to the season, so the best way for you to go about this is just move on, forget about this, and move on. That's the best. Actually, that's the only way. That's the only route you can go through. So, anyways, after that tragic incident, restart happened, and a restart happened. Allmendinger saved it, but a caution came out because NASCAR. Another overtime happened, and Myatt Snyder just stole the show. Another first-time winner. This is like what, the 4th first-time winner, because we already have 2 in the Cup Series, 2 in the Xfinity Series. We have 4 first-time winners in the Cup Series. What even is this season, man? Also, Tyler Reddick finished 2nd, even though he got disqualified because his car was illegal. It was an underfunded car, by the way. It was the 23 car that Natalie Decker finished last in the Daytona Road Course. Reddick finished 2nd, but he was disqualified, so he finished in last place. So that was cool. But then again, I don't know how much I can take Tyler Reddick finishing 2nd on an illegal car, even if that car was underfunded. But still, Tyler Reddick ran well at Homestead, which gives me confidence that he's gonna run well for the Cup race on Sunday. So, anyways, yeah, review over.